Welcome back everybody to a brand new video here, and today I have 12 brand new Journey Together decks that you can build when the set does go live tomorrow on Pokemon TCG Live. Yes, these are all 12 new Journey Together decks utilizing the brand new cards within the set, and of course, they are going to be rotation proof. If y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 22,000 subs, and if you're going to enjoy this type of video, make sure to leave a like on the video. I'll leave a link to the two sites where I got the deck list from, both from Limitless's City League results, and also Pokekabook is where I got these lists from. I'll leave a link to them down below if you want to go check them out for yourself, maybe look at even more deck lists. But let's take a look here at some new decks from Journey Together. All right, starting things off, we have a Bellibolt EX. Now, Bellibolt EX is much like Baxcalibur, where you can, as often as you like, attach a basic light energy card from your hand to your Iono's Pokemon. So, of course, the main Pokemon you're going to want to charge up is Kilowattrel, Voltorb, and, of course, your own Bellibolt. Now, Bellibolt isn't a bad attacker. It does need 4 energy, but it does 230 damage, which is pretty solid damage to knock out most big basics. It also has 280 HP, so you can Bellibolt to your own Bellibolt to build up the attack, and then you can attack with it. But there's also the Voltorb, which does have an attack that does 20 plus 20 more damage for each light energy on all of your Iono's Pokemon, so you can use the Voltorb as an attacker too. And there's the Kilowattrel, which you can also attach light energy to, because its ability allows you to discard energy from the Kilowattrel to draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hand, kind of like the Rev of Room in that regard. So you have a draw engine, a 1-prize attacker, and a decent beat stick with the Bellibolt that can also accelerate energy. It's a nice little package here. The deck does also have the Stadium card Lavencia, which allows you to take 2 basic light energy cards from your discard pile and put them into your hand. So it's a free energy retrieval for lightning energy. So it even has an optimal Stadium card. Everything really just falls in place with this deck. The lack of damage is maybe there. I mean, 230 is a lot of damage, but you don't really have a great way to do more damage. The list here that I got did, I think, win a City League. It does have Prime Catcher as a spec over maybe something like Max Belt. You can experiment with Max Belt, because then your Bellibolt could do 280 damage, which could be relevant. The deck also plays a new Magearna, which, when it's in the active spot, you attach an energy from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, you heal 90 damage from it. So a heavily damaged Bellibolt on the bench can actually heal itself off with a Magearna in the active spot, which is some really cool synergy there. It's a very simplistic list, 4 Iono, 3 Research, 2 Boss, but really gets the job done, and I'm excited to try out Bellibolt. So while we're on the topic about decks with Super Cool, let's actually talk about Baxcalibur, Wailord now. Now, Wailord is a really interesting 1-prize card. It has 240 HP, and its attack does 10 plus 50 more damage for each water energy attached to it. So the idea of the deck is use Baxcalibur's ability to accelerate all the water energy to the Wailord. You build up the Wailord, and you hit really hard. Of course, having 240 health makes you very bulky. You have more HP than Shempao itself. Now, the nice thing about playing Wailord over Shempao, not only is it going to be bulkier than it, and it's a 1-prizer, but you don't have to discard the energy when you attack with it. One thing with Shempao is, you put the energy on, you discard all this energy, and then your opponent can actually knock out the Baxcalibur as a way to beat you. But when you have the Wailord, you got to respect the Wailord as it has the energy on it. Now, the nice thing about this deck is also the beat stick of Regigigas. Regigigas is another really strong attacker you can play with Baxcalibur, because for 4 energy, it can do 330 damage, knocking out Dragapult, knocking out Charizard, knocking out even Hydreigon EX and other big Terra Pokemon. So you have 2 really big attackers. Wailord can deal with the smaller threats, like the big EX Pokemon, and then Gigas can deal with the big threats, like the Dragapults and the Charizards. Now, of course, the Baxcalibur deck does get nerfed with rotation, because we are losing Irida, Pokestop, stuff like that. This deck does have a new draw engine with the Rev of Room over the Bibarel engine. Also uses Arven with Team Evo to help get out your Arctibax and your Wailord even, which is really nice. Also, Precious Trolley, a CA spec card, makes sense to fill up your bench really easily. There's a, Prime Catcher could be good too if you want to play that, or, whatever the case may be. A couple of reversal energies kind of neat too, because you can use reversal energy with Wailord to fuel the attack cost when you're behind in prizes. This will help you if you're not able to get your Baxcalibur quick enough. And of course, the Luxurious Cape can give your Wailord 340 HP, making it even tankier. But at that point, it does give up 2 prizes. But you're bulkier than a Charizard EX, so at that point, it might be worth it to try out the Luxurious Cape. I think Wailord Baxcalibur is actually pretty fun, and I'm really excited to try it out. The Hop Station deck has so much going for it. It has a lot of raw power behind it. However, the weird thing about the deck is the most popular version of it isn't really using it with Metal Energy like with Archaludon or even Metang. It's actually playing it more as a spread deck. Now, Zacian has an attack which for 1 energy does 30 damage and then 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And like I said, you can increase that damage output with the help of the Hop's Choice Belt to do 30 more damage. You have the Postwick Stadium card and the Snorlax for an extra 60 damage. So you can do 90 more damage. So Zacian can do 120 to the active and 30 to a bench Pokemon. With Manaphy rotating, bench barrier isn't going to be as common. And with the Monkey Dories in the deck, you have a little bit of extra spread in the deck. I've even seen some of these Zacian lists built with Frostlass in them to apply even more spread damage. Having access to the new Cramorant here isn't bad either. When your opponent is on 3 to 4 prizes, you can do 120 damage for 1 energy, which isn't too shabby either, especially as you can also boost Cramorant's damage. Having access to the monkey can apply even more damage on top of that with the Zacian and the Cram in those regards, which is really, really cool. The deck does play the Devo, so if you're up against something like Charizard or Dragapult, you have the ability to de-evolve their Pokemon. Even playing 2 Snowy Mountains in the deck to apply even more spread damage is kind of crazy. You're just trying to put as much damage counters on the board as you can really quickly, which is what I like about this idea. Again, I've seen some of these lists playing stuff like Frostlass in the deck. With the Frostlass, so you're not really as able to use Snorlax as often because Snorlax will take damage, but that applies even more spread damage. So if you really want to go in on the spread package, trying out Frostlass could be a cool idea. And Zacian's definitely interesting, and you can also, try to build it up via Metang or Archaladon, but the spread approach is the one that I've seen be the most common over in Japan. I thought Budu was bad enough. Well, there's another new item lock card, and that's, of course, Tyranitar. Now, Tyranitar does have an ability when it's in the active spot, your opponent can't play any item cards. Now, it's not as strong as Budu, because it has to be in the active. Your opponent can obviously play something like Iron Bundle or Boss's Order to get out of it, but Tyranitar is a pretty cool card, and I think it actually can be a threatening attacker to deal with. Its ability already is really strong, and if you play it with Budu, you can actually Budu your opponent and then get the Tyranitar out, and then your opponent just couldn't play any items at all at that point. And of course, combining it with Pidgeot gives you a little bit more mobility. Tyranitar isn't really a bad attacker. For 2 energy, a Dark and a Colorless, does 150 damage, and you get to discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. The extra milling can actually be pretty helpful at slowing down your opponent, because you can mill some very important resources that your opponent needed in order to stay in the game, which is what I like about it. The one cool thing with this list is also incorporating the Unfair Stamp. Being able to go like Unfair Stamp into a Tyranitar and then item locking them seems kind of diabolical, so that is a cool combo this deck can also use, especially if you're going Itchy Pollen early on. Your opponent kills the Budu, and then you go like Rare Candy, Tyranitar, attack, Unfair Stamp your opponent, and then, of course, having the Dusk line in the deck, the Dusknoir and Dusclops, to apply even more damage, putting on more pressure, punishing your opponent for not being able to play something like Nest Ball or Buddy Poffin, so you can knock out all those little basic Pokemon on the bench with the help of the Ghosts. Also seems pretty evil. It's a pretty simple list, all things considered, but I think Tyranitar actually is a pretty solid 1-prize attacker, and I think it does have some potential because its attack and ability are pretty solid. We're finally getting Blaziken EX within Journey Together. I thought it was going to come out in Prismatic Evolutions, but it's here, and it's a pretty solid card. It's got an ability that allows you to attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. There's a lot you can do with Blaziken. I actually struggled to find a list that I wanted to use in this video because, like I said, there's a lot of different variations of how to build a Blaziken, but actually the most common way that I saw was actually just playing it by itself with some Monkey Dories in the deck, and also for Rigoraph. Now, Blaziken does have an attack that does 200 damage, which isn't bad. 200 damage is solid damage, but it doesn't always get the job done, and that's why the Monkey Dories are in the deck, to help you spread some more damage. You can obviously easily get the energy on the Monkey Dory. You can build up multiple Monkey Dories in a single turn, technically, if you have multiple Blaziken in play, which is actually really cool how that works. And, of course, the Frigoraph does help you out against stuff like Raging Bolt and other big basic decks that can't really answer the Frigoraph, especially when you play so many Monkey Dories in the deck. If they're trying to deal with the Frigoraph via like Slitherwing or their baby Raging Bolt or something, you can just push that damage off with the help of Monkey Dory. And the Mimikyu's also in the deck to be even more annoying at that too. And again, you can build a Mimikyu fairly easily with Blaziken's ability. It's an interesting idea, and I really like how this deck plays. It's a funny little like troll style Blaziken deck, but Blaziken does have a lot of potential. It is a stage 2, which is one of the things holding it back. You can see in this build here, it does play Team Evo. There's no Rare Candy in the deck, so it's not as easy to get the Blaziken out fast, but you are able to get it out with the help of the Team Evo, which can be nice if you play against something like Budu. So it's cool, and if you get Blaziken set up, you can put so much energy in play, and I'm excited to try out some cool Blaziken decks. So there's a lot you can cook up with this card. All right, of course, we had to talk about the big new trainer deck from Journey Together, the Ends Zoroark deck. Now, I've actually been testing this deck IRL to get used to it. I've done a deck profile video on my second channel already here, and I've actually been really liking the deck so far. I think this deck actually has quite a bit of potential in the meta. The main gimmick of the deck is Zoroark EX has an ability that lets you discard a card from your hand, draw 2 cards, and then you get to use your other attack for 2 dark energy. You get to copy one of your benched Ends Pokemon's attacks. Now, the 2 best Ends Pokemon to copy are the Darmanitan and the Reshiram. The Darmanitan has an attack that is 90 damage to the active Pokemon and then 90 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It's a great way to actually get rid of low HP threats on your opponent's board, on top of having the Reshiram, where the Reshiram has an attack Powerful Rage that does 20 damage for each damage counter on it. So if you're playing against like Dragapult and they just Phantom Dive into your Zoroark for 200 damage, you can just clap back by benching Reshiram and then knocking out the Dragapult in one hit, which is really, really cool. And I think the main gimmick of the deck really is using that Darmanitan, but the Reshiram does provide a really big threat to the opponent where they actually have to be very careful with how they play against Zoroark. But of course, having the Monkey Dory in the deck allows you to get some more healing on the board. The Buddoo's really nice too, because you can item lock your opponent early on, stop them from playing Buddy Poffin, and then you can cripple their setup by Darmanitating them because they weren't able to set up as many Pokemon. The deck has Ends PP Up, the item card that allows you to attach energy to your Zoroarks, which is really good. Darmanitan's other attack can be relevant too. It does 30 damage for each energy in your opponent's discard pile. So if you're up against Raging Bolt or Goldengo or something, you can actually one-shot them with Darmanitan's attack. This deck does lack a little bit of damage, which is like one of the downsides about this deck, but I'm still a big fan of the Zoroark deck so far. And like I said, in testing, it actually has felt pretty decent. I'm excited to try it out when it comes out on Pokemon TCG Live. The new Lycanroc can accelerate special energy onto itself, specifically the Spike Energy. Now, Lycanroc has an ability when you evolve it from your Rockruff, you get to attach 2 Spike Energy cards from discard pile to the Lycanroc. Now, Spike Energy is kind of like Rocky Helmet. When it's attached to a Pokemon and it gets damaged by an attack, you put 2 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon, which is actually really nice because you can put even more damage on the board, technically increasing your overall damage output. You can also use it to like knock out Buddoo if they itchy pollen you with a couple of Spike Energies on, which is pretty cool. But Lycanroc's attack synergizes really nicely with Spike Energy. It does 40 plus 40 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So over time, eventually those Spike Energies will add up, and that damage on Lycanroc's attack will be able to one-shot almost anything in the active spot when they took all that damage. To help with damage output, there is also Frostlass and Monkey Dory to get a little bit more spread damage on the board to make the Lycanroc hit a little bit harder. Also, having the Buddoo in the deck and the TM Devo to make your matchups into like the evolution decks like Charizard and Dragapult a little bit better. Having a built-in energy acceleration system is really nice. That's one of the nice things I like about the Lycanroc, and having the ability to pair within Frostlass Monkey Dory for more spread definitely seems pretty cool. So it's another Frostlass deck you definitely got to keep your eye out on when it comes out. Burn might be relevant now in the TCG with the new Volcanion EX, which has an ability when it's in the active spot, you can leave your opponent's active Pokemon burned. So at the start of your turn, you can promote Volcanion as a pivot and then burn your opponent's active. But on top of that, you can play the new Magmortar 2, which when it's in play, you get to apply even more burn damage, making the burn actually pretty relevant. Now, is burn better than just playing like Brute Bonnet with Peerless Jungle? That's going to be the question, because you don't get to really use Petra Run as much, but burn is still kind of cool, and it's really nice that you're able to use this with Volcanion, and burn can still knock stuff out to avoid Pheasantipity during Pokemon Checkup, which is pretty relevant. Now, this build here is pretty funny. It's utilizing Buddoo with the burn package. So instead of poisoning your own Buddoo, you burn your opponent's active, and then you hit them with the Itchy Pollen to try to knock them out. It's an interesting concept on how to play the deck, and I think it does work decently well. Buddoo can be a very annoying card to deal with, and if your opponent can't play items, and they're taking so much damage from burn, it can really add up. Now, the big downside with burn, though, is your opponent can get out of burn, technically, so they don't stay burned forever, much like with Poison, but you do get to apply a lot of extra damage with the help of the Magmortar and the Volcanion combo, and I think there is something fun about this deck idea. There's other ways you could play Volcanion, but most of the time it's going to be like a tech EX card, but to kind of revolve a deck around it, in my opinion, is more cooler, and that's why I wanted to include it in this video. Here's a fun little Stage 2 deck for you. The new Metagross can do 280 damage if you have a Beldum and a Metang on your bench, which isn't hard to do. The way this deck is built is utilizing TM Evolution to get there. With the TM Evo, you can easily just go 2 Metangs and then evolve the 1 Metang into the Metagross and then just bench another Beldum, and then just like that, you have a Beldum and a Metang in your bench for your Metagross to hit really hard. And it only needs 2 Psychic Energy, which is really nice because you can obviously just use Zatu's Clairvoyant Sense to accelerate energy onto the Metagross to build it up. And this combo is pretty straightforward, but it works pretty effectively. Also, Tulip is nice to have in the deck as a way to recover and loop your Beldums, Metangs, and Metagrosses and energies, so you can kind of keep up this loop with the Tulip. Also, having the max Belt as Z-Spec makes sense, because then Metagross can actually one-shot some big threats like Charizard and Dragapult. Also, playing Lilius Clefairy doesn't hurt either to have a backup attacker, but also to have an easier time in a Dragapult, because usually these evolution-style decks would struggle into Phantom Dive, but when you have the threat of Clefairy and potentially the threat of one-shotting them with Metagross Max Spell, you actually have yourself a pretty good matchup into Dragapult. You can even loop the Clefairy with the Tulip if you really have to, which is nice, and this deck definitely feels pretty cool, and I'm excited to try it out, because Metagross is going to be a lot of fun to play, and we might finally have like a pretty playable Metagross after quite a while. Salamence CX is a very powerful card, except getting it powered up is going to be a little tricky. However, I think one of the best ways to play it is going to be pairing it with Charizard EX for a bit of a Stage 2 toolbox here. Now, Salamence does have an attack that does 50 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and then its big attack for a fire, water, and 2 Pulse Energy does 300 damage, which is a nice big spike of damage. Now, Charizard EX can power up your Salamence if you really have to use Infernal Rain that way, and Charizard is also just a very powerful card in the new format, in my opinion. I don't think many decks are going to be respecting Charizard as much going into this new format, thanks to Charizard being able to hit really hard into big basic Pokemon, and I think having the ability to use Salamence early on with its 50 damage spread attack can be a really nice little combo, and if you really have to, you have the blow-up potential with Salamence's 300 damage attack if that ever comes up, and of course, the help of Grand Tree gets your Stage 2s out even quicker. You can use Grand Tree to get out your Pidgeot or your Salamence. You can Grand Tree Charizard, but keep in mind you can't Grand Tree with the Charmeleon, and that doesn't count as evolving into the Charizard to activate its ability, but treeing out Salamence or Pidgeot does make sense. Also, with Crispin in the deck, with the water and fire energy, you do have a way to accelerate energy onto your Salamence that way if you really have to. Hawlucha's a sneaky little inclusion, but Hawlucha can be kind of funny, as you can use Hawlucha to then let Salamence do 60 damage to 2 Pokemon with its attack, which can be nice to knock out little Pokemon like Pidgeys and stuff like that, and really threaten Pokemon a lot quicker. And of course, being able to apply that much spread damage with a 320 HP beast like Salamence makes it so the opponent has to respect the Salamence or get knocked out. Also, then having the Devo in the deck allows you to de-evolve the Pokemon that you spread the damage to. Though, keep in mind, you're not going to be able to hit Terra Pokemon, but a lot of those Terra Pokemon can get farmed pretty easily by Charizard's Burning Dark's attack. I definitely want to try out Salamence with Charizard, because it looks pretty cool, and it might be the best way to play Salamence for sure. Hit and Run might get even better now with the brand new Accelgor. Now, it's got an attack for Grass and a Pulse Energy, does 70 damage, and you get to confuse and poison your opponent's active Pokemon, and then you switch Accelgor with a Pokemon on your bench. Now, there's quite a good amount of walls you can go into, like, of course, Mimikyu or Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, both of which are going to be good in this new format. There's also Petron. Since you're poisoning your opponent's active with the Accelgor, you might as well go into Petron to do even more damage, as Petron's ability would stack the poison damage that you would do with the Accelgor. But you can also go into Tyranitar. Now, this deck seems kind of familiar because it reminds me a little bit of the Gothitelle Accelgor deck from like way back in 2014, 2013. And with Tyranitar's ability, which we looked at earlier, which can item lock your opponent once in the active spot, being able to poison and confuse your opponent with item lock feels pretty strong. The downside about playing the Tyranitar is a bit slower. It is a stage 2, obviously, so it's a bit harder to get out. But if you can get the Tyranitar to play quickly enough, you can definitely have yourself a pretty annoying lock where your opponent is item locked and confused, making it hard for them, because then they have to make some very interesting decisions about how they want to play out their turn. This deck definitely looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to play. And is it better than just like playing something like Flygon EX, which is another strong hit and run card, but it's a stage 2? Or is it better just to have the Accelgor, as it's a one prizer that can be easier to get into play without the hassle of rare candy? Who knows, but I'm excited to try out Accelgor. And with the combination of Petron, Mimikyu, Tyranitar, Cornerstone Mask, there's a lot of really good walls to go into that can really annoy the opponent. And last but not least, we have Mamoswine EX, which is going to be a really fun deck because it's all about putting a bunch of Stage 2 Pokemon into play. Mamoswine has an attack for 2 Fire Energy, does 180 plus 40 more damage for each Stage 2 Pokemon you have on your bench. So the goal of the deck is try to get as many Stage 2s in play as you can, and then hit really hard with Mamoswine. It does have an ability that allows you to search deck for a Pokemon, which is a really nice way to help chain your Stage 2s. The best Stage 2s in the deck, obviously, you want to play Pidgeot EX. It's kind of a no-brainer of a Stage 2 to play. It's a great Pokemon to have with Quick Search, but you also want to get energy on the Mamoswine. It needs 2 energy to attack. Well, we can play the Garganacl here, which does have an ability which allows you to attach a basic Fire Energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. I think you also get to heal 30 damage from it, which honestly isn't bad either. You know, if you're playing something like Dragapult, healing 30 can be kind of relevant. And of course, it does get you energy into play, and it happens to be a Stage 2. So not only does it apply energy acceleration for your Mamoswine, but it's a Stage 2, so it also works with the attack. Some other Stage 2s you want to play are Luxray and Klinklang. Both Pokemon can be actually put into play for free without needing rare candy. Luxray can be put into play for free if you're behind in prizes. Klinklang can be put into play if your opponent has a Stage 2 Pokemon in place. If you're against like another deck like Dragapult or Charizard, you can put Klinklang down for free, which is free damage for Mamoswine's attack. I have seen Mamoswine being played with Blaziken EX also as a way to put energy onto it. That could work over the Garganacl, but I like the idea of Garganacl because it kind of naturally puts Fire Energy into play. Using Precious Trolley is interesting to get as many basics down as you can. Try to get as many Stage 2s out. Obviously, Team Evo is a great inclusion, as you can use the Stage 1s as a way to get out the Stage 2s even quicker. For Mamoswine, you could also experiment with Grand Tree, obviously, as another way to get your Stage 2s out even quicker. And Mamoswine can one-shot almost anything once your board is full of Stage 2s. And once the Stage 2s are out, they usually have a lot of HP and are a bit harder to deal with, as Mamoswine has 340 40 HP. So I'm really excited to try out Mamoswine and see what other different Stage 2 packages we could try to play with this EX card. But there you go, folks. Those are 12 brand new Journey Together decks to play when the set does go live on Pokemon TCG Live. Well, at the time of recording this, tomorrow, though Thursday, but yeah, definitely excited for this new set and rotation. It's gonna be a lot of content to make, so I'm really excited for it all. So if y'all are gonna subscribe to the channel, it'd be greatly appreciated, and leave a like in the video if you enjoyed, and yeah, let me know if you're interested in any of these decks, because I'm excited to try out some of them here, especially the Zoroark deck. I'm really excited to play Zoroark, and I'm kind of excited also to try out the Tyranitar deck. Looks kind of fun too. Really excited for all this, and I'll catch y'all very soon here for some more content. Bye-bye.